How's it going, everyone? Okay, so today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about product knowledge, okay? Because what happens is that, as you guys know, I'm releasing a website very soon, okay? It's still going to take like a week or two. I'm really sorry about the delays on that. A lot of design, a lot of stuff going into it. It's not going to be a BS website. It's going to be very, packed with information as well as the web store, et cetera, okay? This website is going to be more of an academy school website that happens to have a web store. It's going to be a web store that also has some information. It's not it's not meant for that purpose. It's meant to educate first. Okay, so at the same time, okay, because of the nature of the website and how it's going to be, I can't just go ahead and carry anything, right? Two things. Number one, I put my name behind it. Number two, it doesn't make any sense as an educator to offer everything out there, okay? Because it would be hypocritical of me to like take every single item and to just be like, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome. That makes no sense because it's not true, okay? So a couple of things that I want to show you guys of the process that I kind of had to go through as far as getting all the equipment and ordering supplies and stuff and whatnot. Now, I've dealt with a lot of manufacturers out there, okay? And all I can say is that other than selecting the best of every single category, we also went with it had to be the best quality at the most affordable price, also being in a high-end clone all at the same time, so that everybody could get their hands on it and nobody's going to get jumped. See, this website is not my main job. This is not my full-time job or whatever. This is an extra project that I'm putting out there. So I don't have time to deal with a whole bunch of back and forth, and therefore that's why I can't just buy anything. So what happens is that I dealt with a ton of companies, and I have copies and copies and copies of things I got a Magma from this company, I got a Magma from that company, I got a K-Foam from this company, another K-Foam from that company, and I have little labels underneath each one, symboling what company that they're from. Some stuff was absolute junk, and some stuff was really good in quality. Some stuff was in equal quality, but the price of it was just way too high. Okay. So it was just unreasonably high. All right. I'm not gonna put too many companies out there in the gutter or whatever, but I did decline a lot of offers. Okay, a lot of different offers because they just didn't meet certain standards, or the pricing or whatever. It's going to cripple you guys. You know what I mean? So I decided not to go with that stuff. So right now, okay, let's dive down real quick and let me show you some of the stuff that I had to go through and why and what the problems were, okay, so that you guys have more of an idea of how to be better consumers, okay? So let's take a look at this. Okay, so over here with me I have the a Plume Veil clone, okay? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is that I'm going to go from the obvious to the not so obvious, okay, of problems with different items that come along my way, right? And why we declined them and how we ended up with the best choices. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you this Plume Veil over here. Plume Veil is all the craze right now, so why didn't I get this one? Well, couple of things about this thing doesn't make any sense. Well, this is a 3-ring system over here, so that obviously you could change the body so that you could have different styles and whatnot. However, what makes no sense is that why did they go with the default on the copper instead of the default on the stainless? Because if you have a stainless cap over here, right, with a copper body or whatnot, it'll still match most of your mods. Like if you can imagine that this is stainless and then this is copper and whatever, or the whole thing, or then you have a mixed version because people have mixed stainless and brass or what. So aesthetically, this thing already makes no sense. Okay. Now, secondly, let's move on with this thing. Okay. The main issue with this one and why I said it was junk, all right, is that the first thing that you need to check for many times, right? Well, other than the fact that this thing spins, I thought this was going to be a problem, but then I was able to just completely pull it out with my fingers. Okay, so this thing is just like, flawed from the get-go, and without bashing the company or whatever. Okay, I did go ahead and speak to them about this, right? And it is confirmed this is not a defect. This is a flaw. Like if the whole batch is defective, then it's not a defect. This thing is just made bad to begin with. You know what I mean? Because the first thing that I did was just to make sure that with every single atomizer that the 510 pin over here, it does not recess. So when I push this, I'm able to push it in with my fingertips. You see that? And it starts to recess in. This thing comes out. This thing is completely unbuildable. Okay, so that is the obvious, and why we can't go with this one and this company, all right, that's it. Okay, so let's move on from here. Some of you guys are already very familiar with the TOBH Addy. Okay, so the TOBH Addy over here, this is actually the version 2. Right. What some of you may not know is that there is actually a TOBH version 2.5. So what is the difference between these two little guys? Okay, well, it's the air holes on the sides that's completely different. Okay, so you got small air holes and you got larger drilled out air holes over here. However, what is the problem with this guy? This guy is that, we drill out the air holes. The inside of the base is still pretty much the same. Okay, however, if you look at where the air holes are, they're a little bit low. Why? Because when we go ahead and then see, I'm going to make sure I don't touch the airflow adjustment over here. Okay, so what happens is that we take the holes over here and over here, right? And then as I push it down, you see the wall moving inside of the hole. So then it cuts off half the hole. So the purpose of this guy is to have larger airflow in the 2.5 version. But if this thing is cut off by half, when you attempt to draw on this thing, you get less airflow than this guy. So what is going on here? Definitely a thumbs down, and we rejected this one because of its flaw on that. Okay, now let's go over to something that's a lot less obvious. All right, here we have a K-Fun Light Plus. Okay, K-Fun Light Plus is very nice because it has the airflow adjustment. It's kind of like a Russian but smaller. All right. What is the problem with this one? Looks okay. Like everything seems pretty nice. It's well polished. It's not any bad threading where it's like cutting my hand or anything like that. Well, I'll show you where the problem is. Okay, the problem is in the 510 connection over here. All right, sure, it's not recessing or anything by pressing on it. However, when I turn it slightly this way, you will see that it is a hairline, just a hairline recessed instead of protruding. Now, in order for any type of atomizer to be completely universal, okay, with all sorts of applications or whatever, it needs to protrude out a little bit, especially with new mech mods these days that create a hybrid type of a connection, okay, with directly to the battery. So this thing absolutely needs to be protruding a little bit. If this thing is flat or recessed in any way, right, you could cause a hideous short, right? And it's also dependent on the mech mod that you use. For instance, okay, I'm going to go ahead and then take a popular mech mod and I'll show you the Stingray over here. Okay, so this is the Stingray pin, and you see the diameter of the pin on the inside, right? And now you see the diameter of the pin over here. So this one, the pin is going to be able to just make it and make that connection without touching the negative wall. You see what I'm saying? And then also with the magneto over here, you see how thin the magneto pin is? It's a very thin pin. Right. This is exactly why certain times you're going to need a mech mod that uses a pin, and certain times you could go ahead and use a hybrid connection or something like that, considering the atomizer 510 connection is going to be protruding. So what happens here, right, is that let me show you one more mech mod in my hand. Okay, this is a genuine M16 from Grand Vapor. Okay, so go ahead, you know what I mean, you pay like $185 to $200 for this guy, right? and look at the size of the 510 connection over here. Now, the purpose of the size of the 510 connection is to, that maximum conductivity, so that, like, this thing is falls along the lines of where they say, hits like a train, right? Because, the connection is so good. But what is the problem here? The problem is that it's not going to be good because it's larger than the pin. So it's going to make connection with the negative, and then this has the negative, right? So the moment that you fire this button, this thing's going to flare up to like 1,000 degrees. No good immediately. So this is exactly going to be why, like, people from different areas bought it from a different store, etc., and then they're just going to say, well, my K-Fun Light from this company works fine for me, and then other people who own devices similar to this will be like, no, this thing is absolute trash because it shorts out for some reason, etc., whatever. Actually, it's all because, firing pins come in different sizes. You see what I'm saying? All right, so this is what I mean by, like, you got to go from, like, the obvious to the less and less obvious, and down to every fine detail. If something is no good, we catch it, okay? And that's why this one did not make the list. Okay, so let me move on to something else, okay? I'm going to tell you guys that, like, after a lot of searching everywhere, okay, I actually decided to go with one company on a lot of different kinds of atomizers, and that is the Ivogo company, okay? Ivogo is amazing, like, absolutely amazing. Finally, a company that I could stand behind. Look at the packaging on this thing, okay? The item is absolutely flawless inside. Look at the packaging on the Mephisto over here, okay? And then I also have an Onslaught, okay? And then over here, the Fogger V4. Okay, I have all sorts of other different kind of samples and items, from Ivogo. Okay, but all solid items. The inside, the pins, they don't move, etc., etc. So I'm going to open up each one for you guys to just show you, like, the extra mile that these people go to, like, really create something. And I've also found out that, like, the prices of this stuff is way more affordable than companies such as, like, H-Cigar, EH Pro, Infinity, whatever, okay? And their quality is really second to none in comparison to them. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one up and then show you what's going on this one, okay? It's a very, very generous device. Over here, you're going to get both the the keychain with the screwdrivers. Let's set that aside, and then you're going to get the ES 3.1 system. Okay, I decided to go with the ES 3.1 system because it is the most deluxe out of everything, and the difference between this and a Light Plus or whatever is only $1. So why don't we just pay the extra $1 and we get everything, as opposed to, like, go $1 cheaper and then you miss out on, like, the drip catch, right? And then you miss out on, like, the screw in drip tip and the extra adapter that allows you to put in, like, whatever drip tip that you want instead as well. So as I was showing you over here, when we turn this thing sideways, you see how this 510 pin is a hairline over? Right, that is correct. That is the way it ought to be. You see what I'm saying? Because then when you have different kinds of mech mods that uses, the hybrid connection pin over here, when we, spin the sucker down, right, it's going to go ahead and still be protruding, right? And because it's protruding, it'll make a connection with the battery and it's not going to short out. This is very important for maximum compatibility with all other single items. Because as a seller, like, I don't know what you own. I don't know what kind of mech mod that you own or whatever. So if I don't make sure my products are like this, I cannot guarantee 100% that when you bring this home, it's definitely going to work with whatever you own. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so other than this, what else is in here is that, like, you get a fill bottle, you get accessories, you get the PMMA tank, you get, like, silica. It's really generous. It's really, really generous, the stuff that they give you, as well as a very nicely well-designed box. Okay, the rest of the stuff that, like, I've purchased before, they all come in, like, silly boxes that look like this, or other like black boxes that's basically paper thin and it just says mod on it or something like that. Right. This one, I mean, these people really went out of the way to package this thing, and look at the instruction manual on this. It's sick. It's just absolutely like, they even give you like, recommended heat, et cetera, or whatever. Of course, in my opinion, as you become like, better at using this stuff or whatever, you would definitely ignore this chart and then do your own thing. But as a newbie, you got something to follow so that like you could build along with like what's recommended here. So awesome stuff, Ivelgo over here. Let's move on to a couple of other items. Okay, so Mephisto. Seriously considering bringing this one in for you guys, okay? And I'll show you why. Mephisto is not, see, these aren't items that like I review because I don't see the need to review every single thing that I own, especially like other people have done perfectly good reviews on it. There's no reason for me to like, pile on more and more stuff onto the internet if not necessary. However, really quick run through of this little guy, all right, is that many of you guys out there have always said to me, you know what I mean? Sometimes I like dual coil, but then sometimes I like to run single coil as well. And the Mephisto is your guy. This is your guy that you want to do it with. Why? Because if you had the TOBH Addy over here, right, you are kind of stuck with dual airflow no matter what. So even if you install like a single coil, once you inhale into this thing, you got dual airflow on a single coil, and it just doesn't feel right, as opposed to over here you see 1, 2, 3. So either you could run these two as the dual coil, or you could run this one as the single coil, right? Same issue with like a still air. Still air is an excellent atomizer. It's very basic, very simple to use. Huge airflow on this thing, but again, you are stuck with the dual airflow. All right, it's so basically it kind of nudges you in that direction that like it's kind of dual or nothing. So the Magma that we know is it's not known as a cloud machine, but more of a flavor machine. This thing has all the airflow adjustments over here, so that allows you to run it in dual or single. You see what I'm saying? So if you're gonna go out and buy something that gives you like all the options. That just seems like more sensible to me. So the same thing with like a Quasar over here. Like here's a Quasar in my hand. This thing has the dual airflow, and then you're pretty much just stuck with that. So okay, Mephisto over here. Okay, the 510 pin, it doesn't move when you push it to the side. You see how it's like a hairline above? See, that's good. This is exactly what you should be looking for in every single atomizer, so that it won't short out. Okay, so other than this, it also comes in the brass ring and a black ring, and the copper ring as a default over here. Okay, so I thought this was a really excellent three-prong atomizer. Also, what you should see over here is the size of the hole that you build in, so that like when you're doing like dual coils or quad coils or like whatever coils that you want to build, it is really easy to pass through regardless of the gauge size. So this is really something to think about. I mean, leave your comments below if you really want me to carry the Mephisto for you guys, because I'm kind of leaning towards it. I don't want to be redundant or whatever, but in a way this thing is kind of a class on its own, you know what I mean? Because so many times this is exactly what we ask for. For many of you old school drippers out there, right? Like the Nimbus and like, I Go W, Patreon and stuff like that. Again, it's dual air holes, and then you're kind of just stuck with that. So it's like, what do I do when I just want to run the single sometimes, Especially with all these new devices out these days, whether you're using a mech mod or you're using, a regulated device or something like that, sometimes you want to build that single coil so that like you can have more volts in it for that ramp up time, as opposed to a mech mod where like the only way for you to like get that heat that you really want is to build dual coils in there. So different options, different needs and whatnot for you to like seriously consider an item like this. Okay. All right, moving on. The Onslaught over here. Okay, Beautiful, beautiful item. Let me open this up for you real quick, and then you take a look at it inside, and let me show you what's going on, okay? The Onslaught's logo is a fist, okay? Definitely a BAM. This thing is definitely a punch in the mouth because it is a tricoil. And as I said before, right, the world absolutely needs tricoils, and these are the guys who finally, you know, got her done and got her done correctly. If you check out what's over here, okay, this is a 6. The positive pin over here is a 6-sided setup. Okay, so it's like a hex, and then there's 3 over here. So what happens is that, like, you could choose either this side or this side. All right, and what I'm thinking is that, like, should you choose over here, you could probably run like a vertical coil setup, and should you choose, like, you know, to widen it a little bit, then you could run like a horizontal coil setup over here, right? But either way, this is exactly for you guys out there who feel as if, like, dual coil a little bit, you know, underpowered, quad coil a little too low in the ohms, not what you want to do, while the tricoil is really its thing. However, right, exactly, again, just like the Mephisto, it gives you the options. If I go ahead and then release over here, okay, I'm going to show you the airflow holes. You see how many airflow holes are here? Right. Without getting to, like, you know, too much detail of, like, twisting it around or whatever, right, I'll just tell you right now, this thing will allow you to open it up as, you know, tricoil. It will allow you to run it as dual holes. It will allow you to run it as a single hole. So depending on, like, how many coils you feel like building today, you know, you could go ahead and do that on this thing. So the Onslaught, just like the Mephisto, also comes in, you know, the black, the brass, the copper over here, and it's an outer ring over here. You see what I'm saying? So that, like, you could go ahead and vape on these things. I could stand behind, you know, an item now and then say, go ahead and get these things with, like, these nice rings or whatever, because you don't actually vape it. So it's not going to hurt you or anything, as opposed to, like, those, you know, solid black TOBHs or solid black K-Funds or whatever, where we don't know what kind of coating it is, we don't know what kind of anodizing it is. Some of them are even spray painted on, you know, and it's been known to, like, cause some headaches and things like that. While with something like this, you see what I'm saying? It's all stainless on the inside, and then this cup catches onto the side over here. So when this thing is put together, all heat only touches the food grade stainless steel, and you're not going to have any problems with this, right? So again, items that I can very solidly stand behind. Very nice packaging. You're not going to have any problems with it. And if you look at the Delrin seal, and then how much this little guy protrudes, man, this thing is solid and made really, really well. You know, it's not going anywhere. So definitely, again, stuff that I can stand behind. All right, last item over here, Fogger. Fogger, I'm not going to open this one. This one's like sealed package or whatever. I have many videos specifically on the iVogo Fogger that I've done for you guys. But my point is, again, right, the presentation of this item, absolutely. Like, I don't know how anybody can think that, you know, iVogo stuff is junk. iVogo stuff is amazing. All right, and you know, this video is getting a little long, so let's come up to the overhead cam and let me wrap this up with you guys. All right, guys, so final thoughts on the purpose of this video. Okay, my thought is that between you guys as the consumer and the manufacturer, in between, you must stand a guru, like a master builder, somebody who has, like, you know, full knowledge of this stuff, okay? Better knowledge than you and better knowledge than the manufacturer does, because I'll tell you what's going on, okay? For many of you guys who are just getting into this, I mean, you know, there's only so much that you know. At the same time, with, like, you know, manufacturers and stuff like that, a lot of the people who run this stuff and doing the sales, including the engineers themselves, these people are, you know, like I'm an engineer in metal and steel and whatever. I could one-to-one copy anything that you want, but I don't know how to use this stuff. I just know how to, you know, copy it so that it's one-to-one, and that's that. So sometimes when the original item is inherently flawed, like, for instance, the Lotus RDA, right? The Lotus was, let me see if I can find it over here. It should be in my junk pile or something like that. But okay, never mind that. the item was inherently flawed, right? Because it had the single positive post in the center and then the tri-post around the sides. However, it only opened up 2 holes. You know, completely overlooked. That extra post standing in the back is just, you know, standing there in the corner like a dunce doing nothing. And like it was inherently flawed. And then people who go ahead and copy, you know, the Lotus at the time, you know, just copy the flaw along with it. And this is going to happen with like all sorts of items. There's absolutely no reason why that, like, you know, when you go ahead and copy an item or whatever, we could change up slight things about it. Not things where, you know, the whole RDA or tank or mod or whatever is just going to completely look different. But however, let's say an excellent mod comes out, right? But it doesn't have an adjustable pin in it. So what happens is that, like, we go ahead and then add the adjustable pin. Let's say things like the Typhon GT, right? The Typhon GT, you know how like you can't fill this thing up maximum all the way? Well, what if like we drilled a hole at the bottom, right? So that it's a lot like a K-Fun Light, right? So that, like, you know, you could add a syringe and then add the juice like all the way full. The question that, like, you know, maybe you cannot fill this thing all the way full because of vacuum reasons, that's another story, you know what I mean? But if it worked properly and, you know, you could fill it up all the way by just adding a hole at the bottom, that, like, you know, after you make the connection with your MechBot, like, you couldn't see it anyways, then why not? Why not go ahead and do something like that, so that, like, you know, the clone copy is actually even better than the original one, to the point where, like, you don't even have to call it a Typhon anymore. If anything, it should be called Typhon Better, you know? Anyways, so, right, what I'm doing, okay, and what I plan to do is that, like, I plan to go ahead and be that person in between you guys and the manufacturer, okay? So that, like, you know, I got tons of different kind of copies of different things, and, you know, if it's no good, then we're not bringing it in. You know, I'm going to tell them, like, where the problem is, so go home, do your homework, redo it, come back, you know, I'll test out your sample again, and then we'll talk about whether or not it should be released to the public, you know what I mean? So without things like that, then, I mean, you know, you got beautiful mods like this Copper Nemesis over here, right? But, you know, when I go like this, you know, the airflow ring just comes out entirely. Now, you might say it's because, oh, there's no rubber O-ring. Actually, the rubber O-ring's right here. It's just not done very well. I'm not going to say where some of these, like, bad companies are, because, you know, I'm not into, like, you know, destroying people's livelihoods like that. However, the problems are there, and, you know, really needs somebody to spot this stuff. I mean, I've called them and I spoke to them. I'm like, do you guys have a guru? Do you guys have a, you know, like a master or whatever to check this stuff out and look at it, and what, you know, because you people who do the sales or whatever, I mean, you know, you guys aren't vapors. So what's going on, guys? Like, how do you sell this stuff and you don't know how to use it, and you know, you just say, oh, it's wonderful, it's fantastic, and then a lot of the stuff that shows up out here, you know, it turns out to be garbage. The first batches of, like, the cow pour stuff, you know, like the Lotus ID, like all sorts of stuff that has been given like a really, really bad review for being inherently wrong, right? You know, those things, like, they shouldn't have happened to begin with if you had somebody to stand in between. And I plan to go ahead and do that for you guys, so that when, you know, the web store opens or whatever, right, you can go ahead and count on the device that you're sent, okay, is not going to have any problems at all, okay? So until next time, guys, question everything, do your homework, and take care.